Hello everybody. It's been a while since I've made a video, so I'm pretty rusty. Bear with me. I'm Chanel from Sanity's EMB Designs on Etsy, formerly known as sanitiescrafts.com, which if you go to that domain, it will forward you to my Etsy shop. I haven't digitized in a while, or I don't do much of it anyway. But I do make quilts and handbags and miscellaneous other things, which you can find me also on Etsy. I have two different shops there. One of them is sanitiesboutique.etsy.com, and the second one is sanitiesboutique with the number 2.etsy.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest if you're interested. So I had a request to make a video of the In the Hoop placemat or table mat, and so that's what we're going to be working on today. So just a reminder, please do not leave your machine unattended while running this design. There may be some fabric that is not laying totally flat. Fabrics may be laying over the edge of the hoop and could potentially get caught on the machine foot. Stay with your machine and ready to stop it if you see a potential problem. My way of digitizing designs may not be the way other people digitize their designs, so you want to pay attention to the instructions very closely. In this design, you're going to need to pin or tape previously stitched pieces in the hoop, and you may find you need to rotate this design before stitching, depending on which side of the hoop that your embroidery arm is on. If you have a bigger hoop, I would advise you to use it just to help with adding the other pieces. The first thing you're going to do, or actually let's go through the list of what you're going to need. So you'll need 16 pieces for the blades or the petals, approximately or at least 3.5 by 6.5 inches. For the center, you will need at least 4.5 by 4.5, one piece. For the back, you'll need one piece for the center, another 4.5 by 4.5 inch, 4 pieces of at least 8.5 by 8.5. You'll need batting or fleece or Peltex or Timtex. I'm using batting. I'm a quilter, so I have lots of batting. You'll need a centerpiece, 4.5 by 4.5. You'll need 4 pieces at 8.5, 8.5. And also, if you want, you might want some water-soluble topping that helps keep your scissors from getting caught in the batting. You don't have to use it, but it's a good idea. You'll need a tearaway stabilizer for your hoop, or if you rather use water-soluble stabilizer, I would suggest using 2 layers. If you do use the water-soluble, either in your hoop or the topping, make sure you completely wash your mat once you get it done, because if you lay it on your table and it happens to get wet, it's going to scrunch all up and it's going to look like heck. So just throw it in the washer and be done with it. So you're going to start with, oops, just turned off my tablet here. You're going to start with hooping your stabilizer, and you're going to load design number letter A. Now, I don't think I have it in my instructions because I think I forgot about it at the time. I have 2 different files within the designs. One of them is just plain. The other one will have a motif that stitches over the petals. Here's sort of an example. This is one of my crazy patch ones. And this is my coaster too, so it's not the cleanest in the world, but this one has some motif stitching here on this blade and on this blade. It also has motif stitching on the seams. So if that's what you want to do, then you'll need to load out of the folder that's, I believe it's marked motifs, with motifs. The other one is just plain. It won't have any of these extra stitches. It's just absolutely plain. I can show you the original placemat. So this is the plain one. There's no stitching, no motifs on the seams at all. The only place it'll stitch is when we stitch it together. So, on the one with the motifs, I put motifs on each petal. You can pick and choose which ones you want. You can skip over the first one and run the second one and third one and skip the last one, or do every other one, or however you want to do it. Today on this one I'm just going to do the plain one. I'm not going to do the motif ones, but I'll try and explain when we get to that point when it comes in. Okay, so once you have design A loaded, you're going to run the first color, and this is just your placement stitching. Okay, so you run the first stitch, which is your outline. Then you're going to layer a piece of your batting or fleece or whatever you've decided to use. And then if you want, you can layer a piece of the water soluble stabilizer. And you're going to want to secure this with tape or pins. If you use pins, make sure to keep them out of the line of stitching. The line of stitching is going to be the exact same place where the outline is. So just make sure it's completely out of the way, because you don't want to hit a pin with your needle. Once you get that all secure, you're going to put it back on your machine and run color 2, which will tack everything down and add the blade lines or the petal lines. Okay, so here we are finished with color number 2, and you can remove your tape or your pins now, so everything should be secure. So in the instructions I show that petal number 1 is down here, so it'd be this very first petal. So I have them marked in the instructions. 1, 2, 3, 4 is the order that they're going to be going in. So your very first one is this bottom one, and you're going to secure a piece of fabric, one of your 3.5 by 6.5 fabrics, just like you were going to do an applique piece. If you're using, make sure it covers the entire number 1 area. If you're going to use pins, make sure they're not in the line of stitching. I'll sound like a broken record. And then you'll stitch color number 3, which will tack this one down. Okay, so here's your next color finished. Now's the time that you're going to trim this, getting as close to the stitches as you possibly can without cutting your stitches. This is why I like to have a zigzag stitch here, because if you happen to nick one of those stitches, it's really not going to bother it too much. If you had a straight stitch there and you happen to nick one, more than likely you're going to have issues with it fraying pretty quickly, the fabric fraying pretty quickly. So this is where the topping comes in handy, because my scissors, the points of my scissors aren't getting caught in the batting as I'm cutting. Okay, so we're all trimmed nice and close. Now you're going to get your second piece of fabric, your blade petal fabric, and you're going to lay it face side down, lining it up with where you just trimmed. And this is where I like to be extra safe, and I like to use a seam guide, or you can just use a regular ruler. But if you use the width of a seam guide, which is 1/2 inch, and you lay it straight edge with raw edge, and you flip this, hold it down, flip this fabric over, you'll be able to see if you have everything lined up and everything is covered on petal number 2. Now I can see just a tiny little bit of petal that's sticking out here underneath, so I know I need to adjust my fabric and move it slightly up. Now if you don't want to go through all this work of flipping and checking, make your fabric cuts a heck of a lot bigger. Then you won't even have to worry about checking everything. So now I know everything is covered. I've checked everything. We're going to run the next color, which is going to stitch a straight stitch, the seam allowance. Also a note is the seam allowance is actually only going to stitch about 1/4 inch away. So 1/2 inch checking will give you plenty of room. So I noticed that I had a little bit of this blade sticking out, which was no big deal because I knew it was going to land within the 1/4 inch. I just like to test it with a 1/2 inch. So you're going to secure that with taper pins and run the next stitch. So here's the seam. And now you're going to flip your fabric over. You're going to pull it a little bit taut. Just use your finger to finger press it down. And you're going to secure this and then run the next color, which is going to put the zigzag around this one to trim. So make sure your pin, if you're using pins, keep them out of the line of stitching. So I'm going to go clear up here on this one and clear over here on this one and call it good. Run the next stitch. So I should have put a pin right here because I can see that I'm going to have a little bit of a little extra fabric there, but that's okay. So now again, like before, you're going to trim close to these zigzag stitches. And again, you're going to get your next fabric, petal number 3. And you're going to repeat the process. Face side down on top of the previously stitched. Line up your raw edges. Use your ruler or seam guide, unless you have cut extra big pieces. And you can see here, I need to move it because my petal is sticking out there. So I'm just going to carefully move it, slide it up, pull this back, make sure I'm still lined up, raw edges, check it one more time, just to be safe. And I'm good on this side, and I'm good on this side. There's a tiny bit sticking out right here. You probably can't even see it on the camera. But again, because I have used an extra 1/4 inch here of measuring, I know it's going to get covered. So you're going to tack that down, or secure that with taper pins. Run the next stitch, which is going to be the seam line. Okay, here's the seam line. You're going to flip your fabric, pull it taut. This time I'm going to put a pin up here, so hopefully it will stay a little nicer. And I'll put another one over here, and I double checked to make sure that wasn't going to get stitched over. And I think I'll put another one down here in the corner. and run the next color. Okay, here it is with the zigzag stitch. Remove your taper pins and repeat. Trim, getting as close to the stitches as you can. Blade number 4, same thing. Get your fabric, face side down on the previous petal. Align the raw edges. Get your seam guide or ruler. Hold it down. Flip your fabric. Make sure everything is covered. And I got it perfect this time. Move it back without moving your fabric. Fold it back. Secure it. Run the next color, which makes the seam line. Seam line is made. Flip your fabric. Pull it taut. Add your pins or your tape. Make sure it's not going to get stitched over. Run the next color, which will make the zigzag around. All done with the zigzag. Remove your taper pins and trim again. Now you'll notice these straight lines on both sides. This is for aligning this piece, which we're going to do in the next step. Well, not the next step. In the next hooping. Okay, this time we've got all of our blades done. Let's see, back out here. Okay, so here it is all trimmed up. Now, the next color, if you chose the one with the motifs, this is where the motifs will stitch. It'll start with this one here and move down, so it's going to go backwards 4, 3, 2, 1 from what we went before. So you could run this one and not this one, or run both of these and not these two, or whatever combination you want. Just skip over the colors that you don't want or do want or whatever. After the motifs stitch, then there will be fancy stitching that stitch on each one of these seams. Once that is done, for either one that you have, that you are making, whether the plain or the motif one, next is the backing. Turn your hoop to the back, lay your lining fabric down, covering all the stitches. And you're going to tape or pin this to secure it. I like to pin mine, but I pin it from the front, so I just hold on to it very carefully in one corner, flip it over, put my pin in, and it's way out here where it's not going to get stitched on this one. Flip it back. I usually do the opposite corner, hold it, flip my hoop, put a pin in there. Repeat for the other two corners. Flip it back, hold it. Make sure your fabric stays smooth. Okay, now you're going to run the next color, which is going to tack the back on. Okay, so I just finished stitching the outside zigzag. Now you're going to remove your taper pins, whichever you used. And this is where we're going to trim the batting. And if you use the water-soluble topping. You can trim that away too, getting as close to the zigzag stitches as you can. Trim this all the way around. Okay, here's the front side all trimmed up. Now you're going to flip it to the back side, and you're going to trim around the lining fabric. Okay, here's the back side all trimmed up. Now's the time that you probably want to have your bobbin thread the same color as your top thread, because we're going to be stitching the satin finishing edges on each one of these blades. So once you've got your bobbin changed, go ahead and run the last color to add that finishing edge. Okay, so here we are with the last finishing edge on there. It's okay to go ahead and take this out of your hoop. Trim any pokies that you might have. You don't have to worry about the pokies within this area, but up here where the satin is, you probably want to clean that up. If you used water soluble, you can just use a Q-tip and dampen the Q-tip and just run it across the edges, and it should look good. So this is piece A. Next, you're going to load on piece B-C, which you're going to end up running that one twice. That's why I named it B and C, because it's the next one and the next one. Okay, so here we are with design B-C, and you're going to run your first stitch just like before, and this is your placement line. Once that is completed, you're going to come over here to this, as long as you haven't turned the design or anything, you're going to mark the opposite edge. You'll see one edge has two lines. You're going to mark the edge that only has one line. You're just going to extend this, use a pen and just extend this line out on both the top and the bottom. This is just to help you see when we're lining up the piece. If I put stitches there, then later on you're going to have stitches that you're going to have like a chain stitch there when you get done with your piece that you'll have to trim off. So I just like to use a pen and extend the line. Then you're going to take your piece that you just finished. This is piece A, and you're going to line up this inner line. Let's see if I can get without it getting blurry. This line here, that's 1/4 of an inch or so away from the edge, you're going to line it up with this line that you just marked. both the top and the bottom here, so that they're in line, and that this circle curve lines up pretty close. It's not going to be exactly to the edge, but pretty close. Just kind of look at the stitches on the inside here and line it up with that. You're going to have a little bit of an overhang from the actual fabric. Same with up here. As long as your line is lined up with this line, then you should be good. Now it's very important to secure this so that it does not move. Now I'll give you a tip, just to kind of keep things from moving around too much as I'm pinning it down and stuff. I'm just going to use a glue stick. This is a Crazy Art washable glue stick. I'm just going to get the edge of this to help hold it in place. About 1/4 of an inch or so worth. I'm just going to line that back up. It'll kind of help hold it as I'm messing with it. Pins way out here where I know they're not going to get stitched. Sorry, I'm going to be out of camera here. Now if it's right at the edge of your hoop like mine is, you may have to put a few pins in there, because my hoop is deep, and so it's going to be at an angle. It's going to be laying up against that edge, and it can kind of distort. Let's see if I can get you back in here. I'm going to put one more pin right here in the center so that it's not distorting or popped up or anything. Again, that glue is going to help some, but I just want to make double sure that I'm not going to have any issues. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. Got it pretty secure. I'm going to back this out. Okay. Okay, now you're going to run the next stitch, which is going to tack that down. You can see this is, depending on your machine, you'll have to watch this really close, because, tip this up, because you can see I have all this that this could get caught on. So I'm going to slow my machine down a little bit, and then I'm going to watch this really close and have my finger on the stop button just in case it wants to get caught on anything. Now I didn't get mine perfectly lined up, but it's just barely off. As you can see, the line that just stitched is this one, and it should have been right on top of that one. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference, but I think I'm going to go ahead and move it before I continue, just to make sure. But that's your goal, is you want this next stitch to go right on top of that one. Okay, so I went ahead and took those stitches out, and I redid it, and I got it spot on this time. I'm going to leave my pins in there because I know they're out of the line of any stitching that's going to happen. Everything is going to happen from that line over and down. You'll just have to watch this and make sure it's not catching on your machine and flipping over or getting in the way or whatever. Just make sure you watch that very closely. So again, we're starting just like before at the very beginning. Steps 1 through, excuse me, we'll start with steps 2. Start with step 2 until you get your piece up to here. I'm not going to go through all that again. It's the same exact thing. You're going to lay your batting and your topping, if you're using it, run the next color, lay your piece down, do the applique, trim, lay your next piece face side down, etc., etc. You can just back the video up and see how all that went along. Once I get to this point, I'll come back and take it from there. Just wanted to jump in here real quick. I'm to the point where I need to trim the batting, and I just wanted to remind you to be careful as you're trimming this that you don't trim your previous Dresden off. So pull your batting back so you can see that you're not catching it at all, because that would not be a good thing. There. Okay, so I have finished the second quarter. You can see here it did a satin stitch to connect the two. I went ahead and, keeping the same design, the B through C on, we're going to repeat those same exact steps. Step 15 in the instructions, what we just did on this last section. I ran my outline and I extended my lines, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the edge of the section that I just finished. The whole half will be on your right side. So I'm going to put my glue right on the edge, and I'm going to line up that line with the line I drew, and pin it to secure it. And again, just repeating steps 15 on until that piece is finished. Once this piece is finished, I'll be back and we'll be loading design D, which is the last quarter of the design. I just wanted to note here that now you have all this, big portion here. You might want to clip it out of the way or pin it out of the way, or it may not be in your way, but you can always, if it's dragging or going to get caught on something, you can always pin it or clip it with clips. Okay, so here we are, 3/4 of the way done. So now you want to load design D, which is going to be the last quarter. And I've gone ahead and I ran the first color. Really, the only difference here is that now you're going to have 2 connection sides instead of just the one like we were before. So go ahead, run color 1, extend your lines, top and bottom, also this left and right one. And again, you're going to put some glue on your edges. And this time you're going to align on the bottom and the side. Okay, so now it's stitched. What happens is it's going to travel in this arc and stitch this one first and then travel back over here, and then it's going to stop. That way you can readjust this one if you need to, and then the next color runs this tack down. So this one I'm just a little bit off, but I'm going to leave it. I'm pretty sure it's going to get covered up with the satin stitching anyway. So again, nothing new. We're going to repeat all the steps from the beginning. You're going to lay down your batting. You're going to run the next color, which gives, in your water soluble if you're using it. Run the next color, which will make the outline. And you're going to start with the bottom blade and go through each step until you're completely finished, except for the center. And I'll come back for that one. So go ahead and run your last quarter, and I'll be back. Okay, so here we are, finished front and back, finished the last quarter front and back, all done. We're on our last step. Now you're going to load design E, which is going to be your center, and it's going to look like this, and it's going to have a bullseye in the center. This is just to help you line everything up. So use those lines to line up with your the center of the satin stitches. And then you're going to secure it once you get everything lined up. You won't see the circle much because it's up in under there. But as long as you get the center of each of these, let's see if I can get closer, the center of the satin stitches with that line all the way around, then everything should be lined up. Go ahead and pin it outside of the line of stitching, and I have to go outside of the camera here to get my pin in there, and I didn't get it. I'm going to do that and I'll be back. Okay, so the most important thing here is to make sure that these crosshair lines are in the center of each one of these, because even if one of them's off or two of them's off, whichever way, side to side, up and down, whichever way, your circle will not be centered, or your Dresden will not be centered. Okay, so then once that's secured, this time we're going to add the front and back at the same time. So you're going to flip your hoop to the back side, and you're going to center your fabric and taper pin it in place. I think I'm going to tape this time because my fingers aren't quite long enough to hold everything in place and get a pin in there. So I'm just going to use some painter's tape here. Do my corners. And hopefully it stays and doesn't get caught on my tabletop here. Then you're going to center your backing, center your fabric, secure that down. Okay, everything ran fine there. Remove your taper pins and trim around your circle on the back side and the front side. Front side, trim your batting and the fabric. Be careful that you don't catch your fabric underneath your petals, because if you have batting in there, it's a little bit poofy and you could catch it with your scissors. So I just kind of feel with my fingers that are on the back, I kind of feel. And I did get a pucker because I didn't secure my fabric on the top. But that's okay, this is for me anyway. Okay, then you're going to put it back in and run the last color. Okay, now we can remove it from our hoop. And you have a Dresden plate table mat, candle mat, placemat, table topper. Be sure to check out my Etsy shop, all three of them. Sanity's EMB designs for embroidery designs. Sanity's Boutique for, I have handbags and wallets, and I also sell retail purse supplies. And Sanity's Boutique with the number 2. Sanity's Boutique 2, where I sell quilts and pillows and just several things. And I also have retail there. patterns and whatnot. And I do on my handbag site too. Thanks for watching.